You're listening to Making the Cut, the mostly true life story of a retired surgeon from 1C Productions.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Seitz, founder and president of 1C Productions, where thoughtful entertainment comes alive. Our content, like the show you're about to hear, sometimes includes mature themes and subject matter. This may be offensive to some listeners. It is only intended for mature audiences and has been categorized accordingly. While 1C does not present this material in salacious form, we do include it as the relevant and important story element that it is. I invite you to learn more about this show and other 1C content at just1c.com. That's JUSTONEC.com. And now it is my honor and joy to bring you Making the Cut.
To balance the tedious study hours and the lack of emotional involvement with women, I joined as a sweep rower for University of London. It was hard physical work, yet rewarding. We were tops among the medical schools and colleges, and I belonged to a community. What I didn't know is that it would exact a heavy academic price and resurrect the fury of my father's ghost.
Midway into the first term, we started neuroanatomy. Using preserved whole brains, we studied the coverings, the three meninges, the major blood vessels, and the gross areas they controlled. From pickled brain slices, we learned the nuclei, clusters of neurons, with known specific functions. We traced the connections as they weave through the brain, from the convoluted outer cortex that controlled willful body function, to the medulla that controlled spontaneous activities like breathing, heartbeat, and appetite. I was absorbed, trying to understand how this gelatinous mass created the beauty of poetry, the ingenuity of flight, the majesty of music, and the devastation of the atomic bomb. I was also intrigued as to the brain area responsible for the magnificent experience of an orgasm. The morning's physiology lectures dovetailed with courses on histology, embryology, and biochemistry, each of different duration and each terminating with a test. Apart from the weekly viva voce in gross anatomy, we had quizzes in neuroanatomy. There were almost monthly written tests. I began living from exam to exam. None of the material I was cramming into my brain, which was at the point of explosion, related to ailing human beings, patients. Reading consumed my weekends. I sat in my room, reviewing my notes. They were useless. Why on earth was I taking them? I read the material again and again, anxious, fearful I'd not retain it and thus fail its interrogation. Given the ceaseless workload, I found myself a dull person with faltering enthusiasm for medicine, or, more precisely, the study of medicine. I'd envisioned medical school having something exciting to do with sick humans or their diseases. I was wrong. Other students shared my profound academic boredom. Sensing our frustration, the science faculty repeatedly assured us that we would draw heavily on preclinical knowledge when we eventually examined patients. But the hospital on the opposite side of Gower Street seemed like a distant vision, a mirage across an unscalable chasm.
I need a break, gentlemen. What say we join the boat club?
The boat club?
They have a rowing team. We can get away from these books for a while.
I had never done anything like this before, but I needed an outlet. Sounds good to me. I became an oarsman and captain of University College's First 8. Saturday morning, a coach drove us in a bus to the boathouse at Chiswick. I expected the boat club to be on a canal. To my surprise, we launched directly into the Thames. Relative to the Nile in Cairo, the Thames at Chiswick resembled a tributary. The 8 of us carried our hull to the boat launch. In unison, we lowered the 62-foot, highly polished racing shell into the brown, fast-moving water and climbed in. Having secured our oars into the oarlock, each man grasped his one oar with both hands. We sat facing the stern on a seat that slid back and forth inside the boat. I placed my feet on inclined footplates and dipped my scooped blade into the Thames. We gently pushed off into the ebbing tide. To mold ourselves into a competitive crew, we started the 3-mile course at an easy pace, letting the river's flow carry us along.
Legs loose, legs loose, legs loose. Full length, hips, now, hips, 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 hips. 44, take it to the end of the island. Da, da, da. Blades in.
Like everyone else, I followed the stroke's timing, rhythmically placing my blade into the chilly water, fingers from both hands wrapped tightly about the oar shaft.
Blade shot. Step, ready. Now, step.
With each drive stroke, I pushed my legs against the footboard, providing the power to the drive, and after my legs were straight, leaned back and pulled the oar with my arms, bringing my hands to my chest. One smooth, fluid movement that lurched the boat forward. To finish the drive, I lifted the blade out of the water and feathered the oar back in one continuous, flowing, rhythmic move, as it skimmed an inch or so above the Thames surface. The distances between the puddles that my oar left hinted at our comfortable pace and speed. 16 strokes per minute.
Legs two.
After 10 minutes, we doubled our speed.
Yes! Yes! At 37, 38, loose! There! 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 Good rhythm! Big rhythm! Big rhythm! Big rhythm!
We doubled our speed, leaning back at the end of the drive and straightening out our torsos. Gathering our energy, we slid forward on our seats, tensing our muscles and striking the water again, uncoiling our kinetic power to slice forcefully through the water.
Yes, boys!
Over and again, we slid, sliced, pulled, and uncoiled. My muscles began to burn, yet still I slid, sliced, pulled, and uncoiled.
Fucking rhythm breaks! Yes!
The rhythmic pattern placed me in a trance-like state. Thoughts, worries, even awareness slipped away.
Big rhythm! Big rhythm!
We slowed to our original, easy pace, gathering our breath for the final push to come.
Keep walking! Yes!
As one, we leapt to the command only our crew understood. Our hard and fast strokes almost lifted us off our seats. Teeth clenched and almost cracking, one stroke after another, over and over again, molding and melding the power of our bodies toward a common goal: forward movement.
Now! There! Drop the knees!
Muscle aches set in as lactic acid accumulated. The icy air burned our windpipes as it bypassed the warmth and moisture of the nose. We were 8 men, 8 sets of coiling muscles hunched gracefully and low against the elements. Suddenly and uniformly uncoiling our joint strengths. We closed our laryngeal and the anal sphincter to generate a force, subconsciously building up these 2 vital muscles. No diapers for grunting, grown men. Slide, slice, pull, feather. Over and over. Slide, slice, pull, feather. Then, finally, approaching the bridge at Putney. We ceased to row, oar handles resting on our laps, blades off the water. Our shell glided silently through the water. 8 men slumped over. No one talked, lost in their own worlds of fatigue and muscle pain. We always finished where we began, at the boathouse. Exhausted, we lifted our boat out of the water, hosed it down, and stacked it with other boats. By 3 in the afternoon, we sat in silence, often dozing as we were bussed back to our dorms. Once in my room, I fell asleep and stayed asleep right through dinner. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, the crew met at the gym and worked to exhaustion. My weight dropped to 148 pounds, and my trousers were in danger of sliding off. My pulse became 48 beats per minute as I became fitter. The whole business was grueling, very different from the intoxicating glide aloft in the hot, dry Egyptian weather. Sun beating down, the pyramids on the horizon and the rush of wind past my open cockpit as the thermals uplifted me. But rowing gave me instant community with a band of like-minded blokes and the respect inherent in being a member of the prestigious London's University College Primate. And concentrating on each stroke was akin to meditation, pushing away the ever-nagging fear of failure, of being judged and found wanting in the complex and contradictory outside world. In a perverse way, the agony of rowing made me feel again. Rowing taught me to once more associate physical sensations with inner feelings, connecting to myself. At last, exam days arrived. The 2 days of written questions went well, but I feared the 3rd day orals. Standing in front of a well-dissected cadaver chest, Professor James pointed to organs or tissues for me to identify. Aorta, vena cava, vagus nerve. Satisfied, he moved to a table with pickled brain slices. My anxiety level immediately soared such that my head pounded. I don't know this stuff as well as I should. Giving me a pointer, he told me to identify a structure called the hypothalamus. Uncertain of its location, I observed faint scratch marks made by preceding students in the light reflected off the slices. Hesitantly, I circled a similar area.
Show me more precisely.
I'm sorry, I have not finished reading about this yet.
You're here to learn, not play. Take this course seriously, or I'll fail you and throw you out.
My father's angry, condemning apparition rose up. Perhaps he'd been right. Maybe I was a failure and a bluffer. I returned to Commonwealth Hall to beat myself up. In his new and transmuted vitality, Daddy grew larger than life in my mind. I moved his photograph to a bottom drawer under my sweaters, but his ghost haunted my sleep. Awake, he breathed the fiery fear of failure into my reality. The expectation of success lived in the ubiquitous legends of my father's life. Birth in an adobe hut in distant Upper Egypt. Loss of his mother, barefoot until shipped off at 6 to an aunt in Cairo. Sold into and escaped from servitude as a day laborer. Self-schooled, ultimately rising to a professor at the university, and on to the United Nations. I cancelled my upcoming 5-week Christmas holiday with Oma and Opa in Vedel. Instead, I stayed in my room, grew a beard to save the few minutes in the morning, headed to my desk after a hurried breakfast, and studied and studied and studied. Spring arrived. I needed to plan the high point of the Physiology Society's year, a formal, sit-down dinner in the house officers' quarters of the doctor's building at the hospital. The Medical Society's banquet came first. Jay-Z, resplendent in black tie, gave a short, witty speech, followed by one delivered by the student president. The impressive array of cutlery for the multi-course dinner and the variously shaped wine glasses that accompanied each dish intimidated me. I learned which of the multiple knives and forks to use by observing others, and practiced the art of congenial small talk. Regardless of limited funds in potential's coffers, I arranged a Physiology Society feast comparable to the Medical Society's on Friday, April 24. I invited my dear friend from the Cairo days, Asad, to come. He was studying medicine at Queen's College, Oxford, but said he could make it. I was overjoyed. For the first time in 10 years, Asad and I sat together and talked about our families and childhood friends. I introduced him to my rowing team band of brothers. The best of both my worlds collided. Professor Huxley, dressed in his grey suit, gave a solemn talk about the significance of his research on nerve conduction. As student chairman, I was to speak after him. Carefully, I stood and, as I had seen done at the Medical Society banquet, raised my glass. The reason the lion did not eat Androcles after he had removed the thorn from its paw is that he promised not to give an after-dinner speech. Asad left a note on my desk before returning to Oxford.
My dear Mervyn, it was very good of you to invite me to your society dinner, and I was very glad to have come. I was further glad to see your taste in girlfriends has gone up considerably. That is, apart from our mutual friend Carol. Since the balmy days, Asad.
I was managing to address the wounds created by my father in a healthier way than those created by my mother. I'd begun learning new ways, adapting to and even forming new community. But remember, childhood wounds don't just go away. A visit to my grandparents would bring that truth home all over again.
You've been listening to Making the Cut from 1C Productions. Making the Cut was written, produced, and directed by Rebecca Seitz, based on Michael McGead's manuscript, Mastering the Knife. Noah James played Michael McGead. Additional roles voiced by David Marcus, Gareth Rockcliffe, and Anupam Dayani. Audio engineering provided by Zisher LLC. Making the Cut theme music by Kyle J. Baker. Learn more at makingthecutpodcast.com.